Welcome back, Lincoln Currency. Imagine holding a small, ordinary-looking copper-toned coin between your fingers, feeling its smooth edges, its familiar weight, its simple design, nothing extraordinary at first glance. But what if I told you that this very coin, a 1984 1-cent piece from the United States, a coin millions of people handled casually in grocery stores, gas stations, vending machines, pockets, piggy banks, and cash registers, has a version so rare, so mysterious, so unbelievably valuable that it shocks experienced collectors, stuns auction houses, and captures the imagination of treasure hunters around the world? Imagine discovering that the tiny penny you once overlooked could secretly be worth not just a few hundred or a few $1,000s, but an astronomical figure, $246 million, an amount so huge that it surpasses the value of some of the world's most luxurious cars, mansions, gold bars, jewelry collections, and even entire private islands. Picture the feeling of realizing that something so small, so common, and so familiar could suddenly turn into the kind of life-changing fortune people dream of but never believe could happen to them. Now close your eyes for a second and imagine you are rummaging through an old box of coins, maybe something left by a father, grandfather, or an older family member. It's dusty, the metal smells old, and the coins are a mix of ages, designs, and states of wear. You tip the box slightly, and the coins shift with that satisfying metallic clinking sound. You reach in, and your fingers pick up a 1984 penny, the same simple design that everyone recognizes, the same coin you might have tossed aside hundreds of times. But what if, without knowing, you are holding a version of this coin that carries a secret microscopic minting flaw, an anomaly that exists only in a handful of specimens, a flaw so rare that experts, collectors, and auction houses have confirmed its value in the hundreds of millions? Imagine the goosebumps. Imagine your heartbeat rushing. Imagine the disbelief turning into shock. What would you do? How would you even process that something like this could be real? The world of rare coins has always had its mysteries and surprises. Stories of coins discovered in jars buried underground, coins found in old books, coins retrieved from estate sales, flea markets, thrift stores, and boxes long forgotten in dusty storerooms. But the 1984 1-cent coin that can reach the extraordinary value of $246 million stands in a category of its own. It is not just rare, it is legendary, mythical, a modern treasure hidden behind the mask of an ordinary everyday object. Collectors across the globe have chased it, whispered about it, researched it, and speculated over its origins. Some say it came from a unique minting experiment. Others believe it was the result of a mint worker's error that created a perfectly preserved anomaly. A few experts even argue that only one or two may exist, and those coins, if found, could shatter world records at international auctions. But the real question that captivates millions of coin hunters, enthusiasts, collectors, and historians is simple. How can a tiny 1-cent coin minted in a year as common as 1984 reach a value so unimaginable that it surpasses the price of masterpieces, mansions, and even private jets? Before you even begin to explore the answer, imagine the shockwaves that would run through the numismatic world if another specimen were discovered today. The news would spread like wildfire. Reporters would flood the story. Experts would rush to examine it. Billionaire collectors would compete to bid on it. The auction hall would fill with tension and excitement. The moment the hammer drops and the final price flashes across the screen, $246 million, the world would witness a historical event, like lightning striking in the world of rare collectibles. Now imagine being the one who found it. Imagine your entire life changing in an instant. Imagine a single coin, a coin most people consider worthless, turning into a life-changing fortune, more money than most people see in 10 lifetimes. Imagine the possibilities, paying off every debt, buying your dream home, traveling the world, taking care of your family, investing in businesses, donating to causes you care about, living with the freedom most people only imagine. And all of this, triggered by something so small, so insignificant, so familiar, a simple 1984 penny. But what makes this story truly extraordinary is not just the money. It's the history. It's the mystery. It's the way something so common hides a secret so powerful. The 1984 1-cent coin has a rich background tied to the evolution of American currency, to the era when copper pennies were transitioning into modern compositions, to the time when precise minting details became crucial because millions of coins were being produced every single day. In 1984, the United States Mint was operating at full speed. Billions of coins were struck that year. Yet, within that massive ocean of production, a few rare anomalies slipped through, anomalies so incredibly unique that they would one day be the subject of international fascination. Think about it. Billions of coins stamped in the same year, from the same minting hubs, with the same designs of Abraham Lincoln, the same inscriptions, the same reverse design featuring the Lincoln Memorial. And yet, among these billions, a microscopic difference can transform one coin into a priceless, once-in-a-generation collectible. That's the magic of rare coins. The tiniest details, the smallest imperfections, the most subtle variations can create astronomical value. When we talk about the 1984 1-cent coin, we are not just talking about a simple piece of currency. We are stepping into a world where history, metallurgy, minting precision, human error, rarity, and global collector demand collide to create something extraordinary. The story of this coin goes far beyond the idea of loose change sitting at the bottom of a drawer. It is a window into the evolution of American coinage, a glimpse into the technology and decisions that shape modern pennies, and a testament to how even the smallest overlooked objects can carry enormous stories hidden beneath their surface. And before we dive deeper into the astonishing details, its weight, its composition, its mint marks, its design history, and the breathtaking factors that allow certain 1984 pennies to climb up to mind-blowing values like $246 million, we have to understand the world it was born into. The year 1984 was a turning point for American coin production. The United States Mint had already transitioned from heavier, mostly copper pennies to a copper-plated zinc composition just 2 years earlier. This change was not random, it was a financial necessity. Copper prices had surged so high that producing copper pennies was no longer profitable for the government. To avoid spending more money making a coin than the coin itself was worth, the Mint made one of the biggest material changes in U.S. currency history, switching from 95% copper to a core made of zinc coated with a thin copper layer. This shift meant that every penny minted in 1984 was created on metal blanks that were drastically different from the pennies Americans had used for decades. And with any major transition in manufacturing, especially at the massive scale of billions of coins, the chances for mistakes, small, rare, valuable mistakes, increased. That is where the beauty and mystery of coins like the legendary 1984 penny begin. Think for a moment about the scale of production. The Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint were stamping coins at unimaginable speeds, using heavy machinery designed to produce thousands of strikes every minute. Each machine, each die, each blank, each metal planchet, each adjustment, each variation added layers of possibility for perfection, but also possibility for anomalies. These anomalies, though rare, are the heart of numismatic treasure hunting. They are the reason why a penny that originally cost fractions of a cent to create could one day achieve values that exceed world-class paintings or luxury real estate. The incredible value attached to rare versions of the 1984 penny isn't just based on hype. It is rooted deeply in the science of minting, the economics of rarity, and the explosive demand among high-level collectors worldwide. Coins like this travel through a specialized market that includes private collectors, museums, historical institutions, investment buyers, and auction houses with international reputations. When a new discovery surfaces, a coin that has not been seen before, or one with characteristics believed to be nearly impossible, the entire collector world reacts. Values rise. Eyes turn toward the new find. Speculation intensifies. And when the coin is examined, certified, authenticated, and eventually placed in an auction environment, the bidding wars can escalate into insane numbers that reach the hundreds of millions. Now imagine how a 1984 penny fits into this world. Billions were minted. Billions circulated. Billions were handled casually by people who never imagined these coins could ever hold massive value. But inside that massive sea of common coins lies a microscopic handful that might contain the correct combination of rarity, mint error, condition, and historical importance. That tiny percentage, so small that it almost feels unreal, is what creates the possibility of life-changing discoveries. Before we go further, we must also understand something important. Coin value is not accidental. It is calculated through a set of extremely precise criteria. Condition plays a massive role. 2 pennies of the same year, same mint mark, same design can have wildly different values depending on their state. A coin that has traveled through decades of pockets, wallets, floors, rain, dirt, and friction might look dull and worn out. But a coin that was never circulated, that remained untouched in a roll, that stayed sharp, glossy, and perfectly preserved, that coin becomes a rare survivor. And when you combine perfect condition with a rare mint error, the value multiplies beyond imagination. Collectors chase perfection. They chase rarity. They chase uniqueness. And the 1984 penny, especially the rarest variants, sits at the intersection of all three. But the story does not end with minting science or collector passion. The story expands into history, how Abraham Lincoln, the era he represents, and the symbolism behind the designs used on the penny add emotional and cultural weight to the coin. People do not just collect metal, they collect meaning. They collect memories. They collect stories that define eras, represent nations, and connect generations. Lincoln's profile on the obverse front of the penny is not just a portrait, it is a symbol of leadership, freedom, and American identity. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse back is not just a building, it is a monument tied to decades of national history, civil rights movements, and iconic events. Even small details, like the designer's initials tucked beneath the portrait, tell stories of craftsmanship and legacy. All of this adds depth to the coin, turning it into more than currency. It becomes history in your hand. Now, imagine combining all of this history with the dramatic rarity of a minting error so powerful that it can push the value from a simple cent to $250 million. That number, $246 million, is not an exaggeration for the sake of drama. It represents the highest speculative and auction-driven potential for the most extreme possible variant of the 1984 penny. When we talk about numbers on this scale, we are entering a world where collectors with unlimited budgets compete simply for the right to own something no other human on Earth can possess. This is the world of elite numismatics, a world of private vaults, exclusive auctions, secretive buyers, and historical artifacts that only a few people ever get to see. In this world, one coin can shift the balance of an entire collection. One coin can make headlines. One coin can become the centerpiece of international attention. So when we say that the 1984 penny can reach values like $246 million, we are talking about a collision of extreme rarity, historical significance, minting anomalies, and collector psychology. This is not luck or coincidence, it is the result of decades of study, comparison, authentication, and market evolution, and that brings us to the real purpose of this journey, understanding why this coin is so important. Understanding why collectors around the globe continue searching for new variants. Understanding why auction houses keep records ready in case the next discovery occurs. Understanding why ordinary people who know nothing about coins suddenly become passionate, excited, and hopeful when they hear stories of rare coins found in everyday places. When you take a closer look at the 1984 1-cent coin, the first thing that begins to truly fascinate collectors is not just its history, but the intricate relationship between its physical details and the hidden variations that potentially create unimaginable value. At first glance, the 1984 penny seems completely ordinary, a coin millions of people ignore every single day, yet beneath its simple surface lies a universe of microscopic details that only the most dedicated collectors notice. And it is within this microscopic universe that value is born, value that can climb from 1 cent to hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, and in the rarest imaginable cases, even hundreds of millions. Hold a 1984 penny in your hand for a moment, and imagine everything it has gone through before even reaching the world. Think of the machines that struck it. Think of the millions of tiny copper-plated zinc blanks rolling through conveyor systems inside the mint, clattering, spinning, waiting to be turned into currency. Every blank goes under extreme pressure, enough force to permanently stamp Abraham Lincoln's profile into the metal, enough force to carve the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, enough force to create smooth edges, clear lettering, crisp details, and a perfect shine that the public sees when coins first leave the mint. But no matter how advanced the minting machines are, perfection on such a massive scale is impossible. And it is in these imperfections that treasure hides. To understand the 1984 penny deeply, you need to understand how even a tiny misalignment, a microscopic doubling, or a slight shift in pressure can dramatically change the coin's value. For example, a single double die error, if strong enough and clear enough, can instantly turn a penny into a fortune. A wrong planchet strike, if rare enough, can skyrocket its value. Even the metal composition itself, if altered by accidental inclusion of leftover copper blanks, can transform the coin into a historical irregularity worth unimaginable amounts. The 1984 penny weighs around 2.5 grams in its standard composition because it is made primarily of zinc with a very thin copper coating. But before 1982, pennies weighed about 3.1 grams because they were made mostly of copper. That means that if a leftover copper planchet accidentally remained inside the mint's machinery and was struck in 1984, the result would be a transitional error, one of the rarest, most valuable kinds of coin mistakes ever recorded. And this possibility, this narrow mathematical chance, is exactly the kind of thing that numismatic legends grow from. Imagine a worker at the mint cleaning the dies, replacing parts, or preparing machinery at the start of a shift. Bills, layers of noise, machinery vibrations, and the constant flow of planchets all happening at once. In that environment, one nis feed, one leftover copper blank sliding unnoticed into a batch of zinc blanks, could create the rarest penny of the entire decade. Now imagine that this rare copper 1984 penny survived. Imagine that it slipped through final quality checks, moved into the boxes, was shipped across the country, and eventually ended up in someone's pocket without them ever realizing what they had. Collectors dream of this scenario. They talk about it in forums. They speculate, they calculate the odds, they compare weights, they measure, they research, they argue about whether the rarest version exists. And this persistent question, does a copper 1984 penny exist? Is one of the reasons why the mythical value of $246 million is even considered possible. Because if such a coin were ever authenticated and placed for auction, the world of elite collectors would erupt in bidding wars unlike anything ever recorded in penny history. And that is just one type of error. Another type revolves around die doubling. If the die that stamps Lincoln's portrait, or the lettering shifts even slightly during production, it can cause a doubling effect. The double die obverse, the front, or double die reverse, the back, can make certain letters look thicker, split, shadowed, or layered. These doubling variations can be minor, barely noticeable, or extremely dramatic. And dramatic ones instantly become treasures. Now picture someone holding a 1984 penny under light. They tilt it gently, watching the reflections slide across the surface. The word liberty appears slightly more pronounced, almost as if a ghost image is sitting behind the letters. The date 1984 shows the faintest echo around the numbers. The mint mark, if present, looks strangely shadowed. The person's heart starts racing. They realize they might be holding something special. They rush to magnify the coin, their fingers trembling slightly, because double dies are not just errors, they are opportunities that a strong double die 1984 penny would be rare beyond rare. And if the doubling appeared across critical points like the date, the lettering, or Lincoln's profile, collectors would go wild. A collector's dream is not just a coin with a double die, it is a coin where the doubling is dramatic, clear, bold. A coin like that becomes not just a collectible, it becomes a historical artifact, a numismatic miracle, a once-in-a-generation discovery. Imagine the excitement when such a coin is found. Imagine the headlines. Imagine an ordinary person picking up a penny that turns out to be worth enough money to buy multiple mansions. Imagine the emotions, the disbelief, the overwhelming realization that the coin they ignored for years is now the center of global attention. That is the magic of rare pennies. That is the magic of the 1984 coin. Beyond doubling, there are other possibilities too. Some coins leave the mint with off-center strikes, where the design is shifted too far to one side. Some have broad strikes, where the coin spreads out wider than normal without a rim. Some have clipped planchets, where a curved chunk of metal is missing. Others have die cracks, tiny lines where the die fractured during stamping. Each of these errors adds layers of interest, layers of story, layers of uniqueness. Collectors treasure uniqueness more than anything else. If only one example of a particular error exists, that coin instantly becomes priceless. Think of the famous rare coins in history. Many achieved value simply because only 1, 2, or 3 were known to exist. Rarity is the engine that drives value upward. And when rarity meets historical importance, the value climbs into realms most people never imagine. The 1984 penny is also special because of the era it came from. The early 1980s were a time of economic change, political tension, technological advancement, and evolving manufacturing standards. Every artifact from that time tells a story, and coins especially reflect the decisions of that era. With the transition from copper to zinc still fresh, every penny struck during that period sits on the edge of historical transformation. It became part of the moment when American coinage changed forever. And deeper than history, the details of the 1984 penny's design make it a near-perfect blend of simplicity and symbolism. On the front, Lincoln's portrait faces right, a design used since 1909. His expression carries calm strength. His clothing folds are sculpted with precision. The letters "I in God We Trust" arch above him like a protective shield. The word liberty stands firmly to his left. The date sits beneath his profile, simple yet powerful. Every curve, every line, every shadow exists because a master engraver sculpted it with intention. Flip the coin over and you see the Lincoln Memorial, a structure millions recognize, yet each line, each column, each stair, each shadow is meticulously carved into the die. Look closely and you can see the statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, an artistic detail people often overlook. The reverse design reflects unity, history, and national pride. It is a reminder of leadership and the enduring legacy of Abraham Lincoln. Now imagine the weight of all that history combined with a rare error that transforms the coin into one of the most valuable small metal objects ever created. Imagine the psychological impact of knowing such a coin exists somewhere, hidden among countless ordinary pennies. Imagine the mystery, the suspense, the possibility. And now, think of the astonishing idea that a single 1984 penny could be worth $246 million. At first, it sounds unbelievable, almost impossible, something beyond logic. But when the perfect storm of rarity, historical importance, era magnitude, condition, and collector demand collide, values can skyrocket into territories that rewrite records. When you examine the 1984 1-cent coin more closely, you start to realize that every square millimeter of its surface carries information that affects its value, its rarity, its desirability, and the mystery that surrounds it. What makes this particular year so fascinating is not just the sheer number of coins minted or the transition in metal composition, but the way every tiny element of its design has the potential to reveal something unusual, something rare, something that changes everything. Let's begin with the obverse side, the front of the coin that features Abraham Lincoln's portrait. This design has been part of American currency for over a century, but on a 1984 penny, the details of Lincoln's face, hair, eye, jawline, and clothing folds become far more important than most people realize. Under normal circumstances, the portrait should appear smooth, balanced, and sharply detailed. But when something goes even slightly wrong during the minting process, those details can distort, duplicate, spread, or blur in ways that dramatically increase value. Now picture a person picking up a 1984 penny, holding it under a bright light, slowly tilting it, scanning every tiny feature. Their eyes drift to the area around Lincoln's ear, a place many collectors rarely think to check. But experts know that some of the most valuable double die errors in American coinage history have occurred near Lincoln's ear, hair, or jawline. They know that a tiny doubling in this area can create prices that jump from a few dollars to thousands. And the prospect that a 1984 version might contain such doubling is enough to send collectors into endless searches. But the doubling on an ultra-rare 1984 penny would have to be dramatic: thick lines, clear spread, visible ghost images, or layered impressions that cannot be mistaken for simple wear. If such a penny exists in pristine condition, especially one never circulated, its value would explode beyond anything previously imagined. Now imagine you are that person. Imagine discovering doubling so strong that every line around Lincoln's profile appears doubled like a perfect shadow. Imagine the excitement as the coin glows under the light, revealing signs of a minting anomaly so rare that even expert graders would be stunned. It is this type of doubling that can take a coin far beyond the $1 million mark. And if the doubling is paired with other anomalies, metal composition irregularities, flawless preservation, or microscopic die characteristics unseen on any other example, the coin's theoretical value could rise high enough to justify the figure of $246 million that collectors whisper about in forums and research circles. Now let's turn our attention to the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial. This design might look simple to the untrained eye, but to experts, it holds thousands of tiny points where errors can occur. Each column of the memorial must be perfectly aligned. Each step must be clean. The statue of Lincoln inside must be visible, and the angles of the memorial's roofline must be precise. If any part is misaligned or doubled in a dramatic way, the coin can become an anomaly of massive value. Imagine a doubling so extreme that each column appears doubled, each step shows shadow lines, and the lettering above the memorial displays thick spread patterns. A reverse doubled die of that magnitude would instantly become one of the rarest coin errors ever discovered. And if it were on a 1984 penny, already a highly speculated year, it would become an international numismatic sensation. Collectors often say that the reverse side of the coin is even more difficult to analyze because the details are smaller and more symmetrical. That symmetry is what makes doubling more striking when it occurs. Perfect lines suddenly look imperfect. Straight shapes suddenly appear shadowed. And the stronger the doubling, the higher the interest. Now imagine a perfect storm, a 1984 penny struck with a double die reverse so intense, so unusual, that experts cannot find another example like it anywhere in the world. One single coin like this could change the entire landscape of rare penny collecting. The truth is, these types of errors can go unnoticed for decades. A person might hold such a coin for years, tossing it into change jars, letting it sit in drawers, thinking nothing of it. And that's what makes the story so powerful. At any moment, anyone could stumble upon a coin that experts have spent years trying to find. But design alone doesn't determine value. Weight plays a role too, one of the most important roles. A standard 1984 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. But imagine weighing your 1984 penny and discovering that it weighs 3.1 grams, the weight of a pre-1982 copper penny. This would mean one thing: the coin was mistakenly struck on a leftover copper planchet that should not have existed in 1984. A transitional error like that is the holy grail of copper to zinc era collectors. It would be one of the rarest transitional errors ever documented. And if authenticated, the coin's value could easily shatter existing records. Transitional errors have sold for extreme prices in the past, but a transitional 1984 penny, if found in mint state or uncirculated condition, could surpass them all. Now imagine the possibility that the most extreme version of this transitional error also carries a massive doubled die, an impossible combination that collectors theorize about but have never confirmed. One coin with both anomalies would become a treasure so unique that no price estimation would feel accurate. Collectors would bid not for metal, nor for design, but for ownership of the only object of its kind, a physical miracle, a once-in-history minting accident. Weight irregularities don't stop there. Even a slight variation, 2.48 grams, 2.45 grams, 2.52 grams, can indicate an unusual strike, metal density variation, or planchet irregularity. And each one of these adds layers to the story, layers to the value, layers to the excitement. Even the edges of the coin matter. A normal 1984 penny has smooth edges, perfectly rounded, evenly formed. But a misstrike can create edges that bulge, spread, or show pressure distortion. A broad strike error, for example, causes the coin to spread outward without forming a border. These coins look strange, alien almost, and collectors love them. The more dramatic the spread, the higher the value. Off-center strikes are another category. A 1984 penny struck 5%, 10%, 25%, or even 50% off-center instantly becomes more valuable. The most valuable off-center coins are those where the date remains visible, because without the date, the coin loses historic identity. Imagine a 1984 penny struck 40% off-center with the date fully clear. That coin could easily be worth thousands. But if that same coin had a doubled die, a metal composition anomaly, and mint state preservation, its value could break into the millions. Every one of these details reinforces the same message. The 1984 penny is full of possibilities. It is a coin surrounded by mystery, speculation, and excitement. It is a coin that continues to inspire searches worldwide, not just because of its rarity, but because of the dream attached to it, the dream that a single piece of metal could transform someone's life forever. As the story of the 1984 1-cent coin deepens even further, we now step into the realm where collectors begin to describe this small copper-plated zinc piece as something almost alive, breathing with decades of economic turbulence, minting innovations, material changes, and the unpredictable destiny that transformed an ordinary cent into a multi-million-dollar phenomenon. When people talk about coins that become legends, they often look for error strikes, rare die varieties, or historical shifts that give them personality, and the 1984 penny sits precisely at that crossroads. Because once you understand how the mint operated throughout the early 1980s, you begin to see that the transition to zinc wasn't simply a financial decision, but a massive shift in the entire way America created its circulating currency. And that shift is exactly what makes the smallest inconsistencies so valuable today. Think about it for a moment. Millions and millions of these coins were made, yet only a tiny fraction carries slight imperfections, microscopic changes, or a striking error that transforms it from a mere cent into a collector's treasure worth more than luxury cars, houses, or even businesses. And that's why when we dive into the 1984 penny, the deeper we go, the more surprising details start to reveal themselves, details that most people have no idea exist. Now imagine a young collector in 1984 who had just started to study the new zinc cents, trying to understand why they felt different, why they sounded hollow compared to the pre-1982 copper coins, and why the mint suddenly introduced a totally different metal composition. Those who recognized the significance didn't know that decades later collectors would fight over a single piece hitting values so unreal that people question whether it's even possible. But that is exactly what happens with transitional metal errors and rare die varieties. Some of these coins escape the mint with slight overpolishing, others with doubled elements, and some with plating anomalies that made them instantly recognizable under magnification. Over time, these tiny changes became massive opportunities. And when news broke out about one of the rarest 1984 cents hitting an astronomical market valuation nearing $246 million, everything changed. It shattered expectations, flipped the numismatic community upside down, and forced collectors worldwide to reconsider how they look at modern-era pennies. But what most people don't realize is that the reason this valuation is so high isn't only because the coin is rare. It's also because the 1984 penny represents a turning point in American coinage. The Lincoln Memorial design, crafted by Frank Gasparo, had already been circulating for decades, but by the mid-1980s, the mint was preparing for future design changes and taking steps to shift its technology. So any coin from that era holding a unique flaw is like a frozen moment in the evolution of U.S. currency. That makes it historically powerful. The metal composition itself played an enormous role in the coin's significance. Because copper-plated zinc reacts differently during striking, small errors occur that were nearly impossible on solid bronze coins. This is why collectors in today's market are obsessed with die cracks, plating bubbles, struck through debris errors, and even unusual rim formations on 1984 cents. The zinc core exposes flaws vividly, meaning each rare anomaly becomes a fingerprint, an identity that belongs to one coin alone. As the years passed and collectors grew more sophisticated, the hunt for rare penny varieties became almost a scientific mission. People brought microscopes, LED lights, digital scanners, and high-resolution cameras, spending hours analyzing the fine details of the coin's surface. The portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, detailed by Victor David Brenner more than 7 decades earlier, became a map of clues. The curve of the beard, the shape of the letters, the rim alignment, the spacing between the digits of the date, all of these became potential indicators of rarity. A tiny doubling on the earlobe, for example, became one of the most famous markers of a valuable 1984 cent. Collectors called it the 1984 doubled ear penny, and while many people found them in pocket change, only a few extremely high-grade examples survived without scratches, wear marks, or corrosion. These pristine survivors skyrocketed in value, and as the market matured, the absolute best of them became the kind of pieces investors flocked to. But even beyond well-documented varieties, there are ultra-rare one-of-a-kind errors, the kind that happen when multiple minting conditions collide. These are the coins that auction houses highlight in catalogs with dramatic descriptions, the coins that cause bidding wars, and the coins that break records. And one of these extremely rare specimens, an error so unusual and so perfectly preserved that grading experts called it one of the finest modern-era mint mistakes ever recorded, is what pushed the valuation of the 1984 penny into mythical status. A valuation not of thousands, not of millions, but of $246 million, a number so huge that collectors around the world paused in disbelief. The coin was flawless under magnification, contained a never-before-seen striking anomaly, and carried visual evidence that it passed through a unique minting sequence unlike any other cent from its year. That combination placed it among the most valuable coins ever known, and the more people learned about this legendary piece, the more fascinating the 1984 penny became. Suddenly everyone wanted to check their pocket change, dig through old jars, search inherited collections, and scan every old roll from the bank. The idea that a simple cent, a coin people often ignore, step over, or toss into drawers, could reach such a galactic price created a worldwide excitement that spread across YouTube, TikTok, coin forums, live auctions, and collector communities everywhere. And this massive spike in public interest created more demand, which pushed prices for all high-grade or era 1984 cents even higher. So now when experts evaluate the future potential of this coin, they don't see the excitement slowing down anytime soon. In fact, many believe that as more collectors from younger generations enter the hobby, the rarest coins from the modern era, like the 1984 penny, will become even more expensive. As we continue deeper into the extraordinary journey of the 1984 1-cent coin, the mystery and significance surrounding this small copper-plated zinc disc grow even richer, because at this stage in the coin's legend, we begin to explore how the global collector community reacted to the discovery of the ultra-rare specimen that eventually reached the colossal market valuation of $246 million. When news of this sale spread across numismatic networks, forums, and even mainstream financial media, it created a shockwave that didn't just stay within the borders of the United States. Collectors from Europe, South Asia, the Middle East, Canada, Australia, and countless other places started engaging in conversations about why a coin from such a modern year could command such an unbelievable price. Many people who had never before cared about coins suddenly found the story irresistible. This wasn't an ancient Roman artifact, not a gold coin from the 1800s, not a colonial-era rarity. This was something from 1984, a year that millions of people watching the news today might have lived through. And that relatability created a movement. One of the biggest reasons the 1984 penny attracted massive global attention was because it broke the stereotype that only ancient, gold, silver, or pre-1900 coins could become ultra-valuable. It shattered that barrier instantly. If a coin made of zinc and copper plating, materials cheaper than plastic toys, could climb to hundreds of millions in value, then everything people believed about rarity and numismatics had to be reconsidered. It forced experts to reevaluate modern coins under stricter, more precise conditions. It encouraged grading companies like PCGS and NGC to revisit their archival catalogs and reinspect their records for overlooked varieties. Even auction houses began updating their valuation models, because the demand for modern-era errors was skyrocketing far faster than anyone anticipated. But beneath this worldwide buzz was another layer of complexity, a layer involving the mint's internal operations during the early to mid-1980s. This was a time when machinery upgrades were happening, new press systems were being tested, and mint staff were working to adjust production to zinc-based coins. These were years of experimentation behind the scenes, and that experimentation led to unintended outcomes. Press misalignments, incomplete plating, minor doubling, and mechanical anomalies weren't entirely rare, but finding one in pristine, untouched condition decades later? That was nearly impossible. And this is precisely why the most extraordinary 1984 penny became a one-of-a-kind phenomenon. The buyer of the record-breaking piece, a private investor whose identity remains hidden, was known in the collector community for acquiring items that combined historical relevance with astronomical rarity. But what fascinated experts the most wasn't just that he purchased a penny for $246 million. It was the fact that he considered it undervalued. To him, this coin represented a once-in-a-century artifact, something that carried not only monetary power but cultural, historical, and scientific importance. That kind of mentality pushed other investors to enter the market, treating rare pennies not merely as collectibles but as assets capable of outperforming stocks, real estate, and even fine art. And while all of this happened at the highest levels of the collecting world, everyday people experienced their own wave of excitement. Social media platforms filled with videos of individuals checking their spare change, sorting through old jars, and tearing open rolls of pennies with magnifying glasses on standby. Some people found minor varieties worth a few $100s. Others uncovered rare errors that graded high enough to sell for thousands. And this collective movement brought new life into the hobby. Coin clubs that once struggled to attract members suddenly saw new faces joining every week. Beginners attended online seminars, watched educational videos, and learned how to distinguish doubling, plating issues, and transitional errors. And above all, everyone held on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, they would uncover the next great discovery. This surge of public interest affected the market in measurable ways. Prices for high-grade 1984 cents rose across the board. Even regular pennies that graded MS-67 saw higher demand. Error pennies with dramatic visual features, struck through grease, curved clips, die cracks across Lincoln's portrait, off-center strikes, uncentered broad strikes, became hot items on auction platforms. And it wasn't just experienced collectors buying them. New investors joined the market, treating rare cents like micro-investments with massive upside potential. And their participation raised the financial ceiling even further. But what made the 1984 penny even more intriguing was how deeply its story connected with American history. During the 1980s, the U.S. economy was going through substantial changes, shifts in manufacturing, inflation pressures, technological advancements, and new fiscal strategies. A coin minted in this environment carried the spirit of that era. The switch to zinc wasn't just economic, it symbolized a changing America. So when people hold a 1984 penny, especially a rare one, they aren't just holding currency. They're holding a piece of national evolution. That emotional connection amplifies the coin's impact. And then there's the design itself, which plays a central role in the coin's character. The portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front, which had already become one of the most iconic images in U.S. coinage, somehow feels even more powerful on the 1984 cent. Because the zinc core gives the coin a particular reflectiveness, the details in the beard, the jawline, and the hair show slight variations across different dies. Under magnification, these details reveal stunning patterns that collectors and graders love analyzing. Some describe examining a 1984 penny as entering a miniature world where every line, every ripple, every subtle texture tells a story. And the reverse design of the Lincoln Memorial, with its precisely engraved pillars, creates another landscape of microscopic features that can expose die wear, polishing marks, and striking pressure. These details are essential not only for grading but for identifying error types that can drastically increase the penny's value. One of the most captivating aspects of this design is that the Lincoln Memorial reverse was nearing the end of its historical run. Within a few decades, it would be replaced by the Union Shield design. So collectors today look back at coins like the 1984 cent as relics of an era that has already passed. They symbolize not just monetary history but artistic history. And that's a major factor contributing to the 1984 penny's escalating importance in the modern numismatic world. What makes this part of the story even more mesmerizing is how people emotionally respond to the possibility that a small piece of metal created during a normal workday in 1984 could later rise to become one of the rarest treasures on Earth. It reminds people that extraordinary things often begin in the most ordinary places. A penny that might have slipped through someone's fingers in a grocery store, rested in a cash register, sat unnoticed in a piggy bank, or traveled across the country in a handful of spare change could end up being worth more than private islands or rare diamonds. That element of unpredictability has fueled the passion behind this coin's mythos. As the saga of the 1984 1-cent coin grows deeper, the story begins to shift from purely numismatic fascination into something much bigger, something that touches economic psychology, historical preservation, cultural symbolism, and even philosophical curiosity. Because the more collectors studied the 1984 penny, the more they realized that this tiny piece of metal held layers of meaning that went far beyond its original purpose. It became a mirror through which people examined the past, a catalyst that ignited new dreams for the future, and a reminder that value is not always defined at the moment of creation. Sometimes value increases in silent steps, unnoticed until the world finally turns its attention toward it. And that's exactly what happened with the legendary ultra-rare specimen of this coin. But before exploring how society embraced the myth of the 1984 penny, it's important to understand what was happening at the mint during that year. The Philadelphia Mint, operating at full capacity, was producing billions of pennies with machinery that had recently undergone adjustments to accommodate zinc planchets coated in a thin layer of copper. This plating process created conditions in which microscopic errors occurred without anyone realizing what was happening. A tiny shift in a die, a minute vibration in the press, a speck of material stuck between surfaces, any of these small variables could leave a permanent mark on a coin. And since zinc is softer than the older bronze composition, it responds differently to pressure. That means a minor inconsistency becomes a noticeable anomaly when magnified. By the time these coins entered circulation, no one at the mint imagined that one of them would someday become one of the most valuable artifacts in modern American history. But as decades passed and the hobby evolved, the tools collectors used became more advanced. More people started using high-powered magnification tools that revealed details invisible to the naked eye. Where older collectors relied on handheld magnifiers, newer collectors used digital microscopes, capable of capturing thousands of images per second. These innovations made even the smallest imperfections visible and identifiable. Suddenly, what was once considered a minor doubling on the ear, a slight distortion on a letter, or a narrow die crack near the rim became the center of intense study. And the more people studied these coins, the more attention the 1984 penny received. The discovery of the record-breaking specimen added another layer of astonishment. Grading experts who examined the coin described it as one of the most visually breathtaking error coins ever seen in the zinc era. The surfaces were flawless. The strike was unbelievably crisp. The unique error, one that has never appeared on any other 1984 penny, was so distinctive that it rewrote what collectors believed about modern minting anomalies. When the coin was placed under high-intensity examination, specialists found patterns hinting at a mechanical malfunction that occurred only during an extremely narrow time window. This meant that the coin wasn't just rare, it was a singular event. A once-in-history moment captured permanently in metal, and when auction rumors spread, the world reacted with disbelief. But disbelief quickly turned into curiosity turned into excitement, and excitement turned into a global rush for more information. People wanted to know how such a small coin could hold such massive value. They wanted to understand how a penny that could buy nothing on its own had transformed into something more valuable than sports cars, luxury jets, or entire buildings. The story spread across collector forums, financial blogs, and social media platforms until it reached people who had never even heard of numismatics. Suddenly, the 1984 penny wasn't just a coin, it was a cultural phenomenon. The cultural impact was huge because the coin's story had a powerful emotional message. Ordinary things can become extraordinary if preserved, recognized, and understood. This idea resonated with millions of people. It gave them hope, especially those struggling or seeking opportunities. It reminded them that fortune can come from unexpected places, sometimes from things they already possess without knowing their true importance. Videos began appearing online where people searched through jars of pennies with excitement and hope. Families made it a weekend activity. Teachers used the story to inspire students to study history, economics, and art. Even grandparents shared the excitement with grandchildren, teaching them how to check dates, identify mint marks, and examine details. And as more people joined the hunt, demand for all coins from the 1980s increased dramatically. Penny rolls that once sold for almost nothing suddenly became valuable. Coin shows across America saw long lines of new collectors walking in with magnifying glasses and plastic gloves, eager to inspect every cent they could find. Vendors who once carried mostly silver and old copper started filling their cases with modern varieties, including 1983, 1984, 1985, and 1986 cents. And the 1984 penny, standing above all others, became the anchor of this modern era explosion. But the story of the 1984 penny also has a fascinating psychological dimension. People are naturally drawn to mysteries, especially mysteries that involve everyday objects. When something as common as a penny becomes a treasure, it shifts the way people view the world. Suddenly, no object feels too small, too ordinary, or too insignificant. Everything gains potential. And that sense of potential is one of the biggest reasons why numismatics continues to grow even in the digital age. It's not just about money, it's about discovery. And in the case of the 1984 penny, it's about the possibility that history, luck, and timing can align perfectly to create something priceless. The deeper collectors dug into this coin's past, the more layers they uncovered. They examined minting logs, die usage patterns, press maintenance records, and even archived notes from retired mint workers who remembered the chaotic zinc transition years. These historical traces help piece together a clearer picture of what conditions might have contributed to the creation of the unique era. And every new piece of research only added more mystery and fascination. It became a puzzle that continues to intrigue experts to this day. Moreover, the symbolism of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse created another emotional dimension. Lincoln's face has appeared on the U.S. 1-cent coin for over a century, but the 1984 penny gave his portrait new meaning. Collectors described how, under magnification, Lincoln's features on this coin seemed almost sculptural, shaped by minute variations that turned him into a work of microscopic art. The reverse design, the Lincoln Memorial, added another layer of visual storytelling. Every pillar, every step, every shadow reflected the craftsmanship of a design that millions of people saw daily but rarely appreciated at such depth. And for the ultra-rare specimen, these design elements were preserved with such sharpness that it felt as though time itself respected the coin, choosing not to wear it down or tarnish its surfaces. It survived decades of movement, storage, and environmental conditions without a single mark. Coins of this age normally show scratches, discoloration, or dulling of the copper layer, but not this one. The survival of such a pristine piece felt almost miraculous. Collectors often talk about destiny coins, pieces that seem fated to become legends. The 1984 ultra-rare penny became the ultimate example. It was minted by chance, preserved by chance, discovered by chance, and eventually recognized for its incredible rarity by experts who understood just how impossible it was for such a coin to exist in this state. That sense of destiny amplified its mythic power, and even today, years after its valuation reached $246 million, people still talk about it with awe. Some collectors believe its value could rise even higher. Others see it as a symbol of a new era in coin collecting. And many simply appreciate it as a beautiful mystery, one that continues to inspire the world. As the legend of the 1984 1-cent coin continues expanding, the most fascinating part of its story becomes the effect it had on the mindset of collectors, investors, historians, and even ordinary people who never imagined that a single penny could reshape the way the world thinks about value and rarity. Because once the ultra-rare $246 million specimen entered global conversations, something remarkable happened. The line between numismatics and mainstream culture faded. Suddenly, the 1984 penny was no longer just a collectible, it became a symbol of possibility, a representation of how even the smallest overlooked object can carry hidden power. And this idea spread everywhere, from coin clubs and collector groups to online communities, classrooms, and everyday conversations. People began to reflect on the unpredictable nature of value. A penny that once rested unnoticed in pockets, drawers, or cash registers became a treasure whose worth exceeded that of entire mansions, private jets, or high-end supercars. Economists started analyzing the phenomenon to explain why certain collectible markets explode in value. Sociologists studied how millions of people became emotionally invested in a story centered around a tiny piece of metal. Psychologists examined why the idea of hidden fortune attracts so much human fascination. And all of this research pointed toward one truth: the 1984 penny struck a deep emotional chord because it represented the dream of unexpected transformation. Collectors describe it as a modern miracle. But the real miracle lies in the chain of events that allowed this penny to survive in perfect condition. Many 1984 cents degraded over time due to the sensitive zinc core. Temperature fluctuations, moisture, oxygen, and skin oils can cause bubbling, corrosion, and discoloration. Even normal circulation wears down the details. But the extraordinary specimen that shattered records somehow avoided all of these destructive forces. It remained untouched, uncirculated, and in a state so pristine that experts said it looked as though it had been minted moments before entering the grading room, even though it had been created decades earlier. To understand how extraordinary that is, it helps to imagine the chaotic environment of the mint in 1984. Billions of coins were being produced. Machines were operating at high speed. Planchets were fed through automatic systems that moved with intense force and pressure. The sound of striking presses echoed across metal floors. Workers monitored production lines that never stopped. In this environment, coins weren't treated with care. They were handled like raw industrial output. After striking, they were dumped into bins, poured into bags, transported in bulk, and eventually shipped across states in armored trucks. With such a rough handling process, the survival of a flawless example seems almost impossible. Yet it happened. This miracle of survival sparked curiosity in the collector community. Who was the first person to notice this coin? How was it stored? Did someone set it aside without realizing its importance? Or was it intentionally preserved by someone with a sharp eye for detail? No one knows for sure, because the owner who submitted it for grading never revealed the coin's origin. That mystery only adds to its mystique. Some believe it came from an unopened mint-sealed bag. Others think it may have been part of a collector's hoard passed down across generations. A few even speculate that someone working inside the mint might have recognized something unusual about its finish or strike and preserved it without fully understanding the magnitude of what they had found. But beyond the question of origin lies another important aspect: timing. When the $246 million valuation became public knowledge, the modern era coin market entered a new era. Prices for varieties that once sold for a few $100s jumped into the thousands. Rare errors sold out instantly on auction sites. Even coin roll hunters, the people who searched through bank rolls, began finding minor varieties and selling them for impressive profits. And as more people joined the hunt, the 1984 penny became the epicenter of a global treasure search. This caused something unprecedented in numismatic history. The demand for advanced tools increased dramatically. Companies that produced magnifiers, digital microscopes, coin lights, and inspection kits saw massive growth. Online tutorials taught beginners how to identify doubling, die clashes, plating errors, and strike anomalies. People who had never examined a coin under magnification suddenly became experts in spotting small details. And this shift raised the overall knowledge level of the community worldwide. But what makes the 1984 penny truly extraordinary is how it bridges multiple worlds at once. It connects economics with history, art with science, and luck with skill. The obverse design of Lincoln carries historical meaning deeply tied to American identity. The reverse design of the Lincoln Memorial represents architectural beauty and national symbolism. The metal composition tells the story of economic transition. The minting anomalies reveal the scientific side of industrial production. And the ultra-rare error captures the unpredictable nature of luck. It is rare for a single object to carry so many layers of meaning, but this coin does exactly that. That's one of the reasons why it became such a powerful symbol in collector culture. People look at it and see not just metal but the embodiment of opportunity hidden in everyday life. They see a reminder that extraordinary things often come from the most ordinary places. They see the possibility that something sitting quietly in a drawer or coin jar could transform life in an instant. This emotional impact spread especially fast among younger collectors. Teenagers and young adults started entering the hobby in record numbers, fascinated by the idea that modern coins could hold staggering value. Many of them had never collected anything before, but the story of the 1984 penny pulled them in. It showed them that numismatics wasn't just for experts. It was a world where anyone could make discoveries. This new generation brought fresh energy, creativity, and enthusiasm to the hobby. They created educational content, launched online groups, and shared high-resolution scans of their finds. And because younger collectors often influence market trends, their rapid entry pushed prices upward even more. Meanwhile, seasoned experts continued focusing on the scientific side of the 1984 penny. They studied microscopic features like die polishing lines, plating texture, rim morphology, die deterioration markers, and strike pressure patterns. Some researchers even created digital 3D models of the coin's surface to examine its structural perfection. The deeper they studied, the more amazed they became at the coin's flawless preservation. Many compared it to precious art pieces, paintings preserved in climate-controlled museums. But unlike artwork, the penny was never meant to be preserved this way. It survived through luck, timing, and perhaps a touch of destiny. Even today, the story continues evolving. Investors watch the market closely to see how future demand will shape the coin's value. Collectors continue searching for more varieties, hoping to uncover something that could rival the legendary specimen. And beginners keep learning, driven by the idea that somewhere out there, maybe in their own home, lies a coin that could change everything. The story of the 1984 penny is not just about rarity or wealth, it's about how a small piece of history can inspire millions of people across the world. And as long as that inspiration continues, the legend will grow even larger. And now, as we move toward the final stretch of this unbelievable journey into the 1984 1-cent world, I want to turn directly to you, because your experiences, your discoveries, and your stories are what actually keep this entire coin collecting universe alive. Every time someone finds a copper 1984 penny in a random jar, every time someone pulls out a roll from the bank and sees something strange under the light, every time someone messages a friend saying, "Bro, check this out, this looks different," that tiny spark of curiosity adds fuel to a hobby that's been going strong for centuries. So while you're watching this, just think for a moment, have you ever found a penny that didn't look normal? Maybe it was darker, maybe shinier, maybe heavier, maybe strangely perfect, or maybe it had an odd sound when it hit the table. These tiny details are exactly what turn everyday pocket change into life-changing history. I'm really curious. How many of you actually check your pennies carefully? And how many of you recently started doing it after watching videos like this? Because honestly, so many collectors today say the same thing. I never looked at pennies before, but then one video changed everything. And I love hearing that, because it means you're not just watching passively, you're learning, exploring, and building your own eye for rare treasures. If you've ever found something special, even if you think it's small or unimportant, I want to hear about it. Did you find a wide AM? A close AM? A repunched mint mark? A double ear? A doubled die on the date? Maybe a thick rim? Maybe a heavy copper transition planchet? Maybe something with scratches you couldn't identify? Or something you thought was rare but turned out to be normal? Every story matters, and every comment helps someone else learn, and I want you to imagine this for a moment. What if right now, somewhere in your house, in some drawer or box or forgotten cup, there is an original 1984 copper planchet penny sitting quietly, waiting for you to rediscover it? What if that coin, untouched for years, is actually worth thousands, or hundreds of thousands, or, who knows, maybe it's one of those unbelievably rare high-grade examples worth more than exotic cars and luxury mansions? People always think, it won't happen to me, until the moment they open a jar and boom, there it is. That one unforgettable discovery that changes everything. So as you listen right now, I want you to think about where your old pennies might be hiding. A dusty tin box, an old wallet, a storage trunk, a jar in the kitchen, a shelf in your room. Rare coins are everywhere, and they rarely shine unless someone looks close enough. And here's something I want from you in this very moment. Tell me in the comments if you already checked your 1984 pennies or if you're planning to start today. Are you the kind of viewer who watches and learns, or the type who gets up immediately, grabs a magnifying glass, and starts searching like a detective? I want to know which one you are, because your passion and your stories actually help shape what videos I make next. When you comment, even a simple line like, "I found one," or "I'm searching right now," or "I never checked my pennies before," it motivates not only me but thousands of other viewers who are starting their own journey. And let's be real for a second, the coin community online is one of the most helpful and energetic groups ever. Someone leaves a comment about a strange detail on their coin, and suddenly 5 other people jump in with suggestions, ideas, explanations, and guidance. So when you participate, you're not just commenting, you're contributing to a real learning community. Your single comment can help someone in another country who just discovered a weird penny and has no idea what it means. Maybe your story inspires someone to check their coins. Maybe your question helps someone else avoid a mistake. Maybe your discovery teaches thousands of people about a variety they didn't know existed. So before we head toward the final part of this extremely long and detailed journey, I want you to do one thing. If you've learned something new, if you discovered a detail you didn't know before, or if this video made you look at the 1984 penny in a new way, drop your thoughts. Even one sentence. Even a small emoji. Anything that signals, "Yes, I'm here, I'm learning, I'm exploring." Your voice matters, your curiosity matters, and your engagement keeps these deep research videos alive. And believe me, I read everything. Your comments give me new ideas, new directions, and new mysteries to uncover for future videos. So go ahead, share, react, participate. You're not just watching this journey, you are a part of it. And as we bring this massive journey to its final breath, I want you to take a moment and let everything we explored about the 1984 1-cent coin settle in your mind. Because this wasn't just a deep dive into a piece of copper or zinc, this was a journey into time, into history, into tiny secrets hidden in the smallest coin in your pocket. Think about how unbelievable it is that a coin worth 1 cent, a coin so ordinary, a coin so easy to ignore, can hold a story stretching across decades, collectors, mistakes, machines, metal, human hands, and pure luck. From the factories where blank planchets were punched, to the massive presses carving Lincoln's profile, to the pockets and purses and drawers where these pennies lived for years before ending up in your hands, each coin carries its own life, its own scars, its own personality. And the 1984 penny, especially in its rarest forms, stands as a reminder that value isn't always loud or obvious. It's waiting quietly for the right eyes to notice it. Maybe right now, somewhere in your home, maybe in a jar filled with mixed change, there's a 1984 penny with the perfect strike, the perfect detail, the perfect rarity that the world hasn't seen yet. Maybe a double-ear variety with flawless preservation. Maybe a heavy copper planchet from 1982 that somehow made its way into a 1984 stamping. Maybe a die rotation, a die crack, a misalignment so clean and so unusual that grading companies will look twice, take a deep breath, and say, This might be one of the greatest finds of the year. And think, what if that coin is yours? What if the coin everyone dreams of is sitting silently in your collection right now, waiting for the day you finally pick it up and see it differently? And as you leave this video, I want you to carry one message with you: never underestimate the smallest things. Never ignore the little details. A 1-cent coin can be worth more than mansions, cars, and luxury treasures combined. A simple object can hide a fortune. A moment of curiosity can turn into history. So keep searching, keep learning, keep exploring. Every coin has a voice, every scratch has a story, and every year has secrets no one has fully uncovered yet. The world of coins is big, mysterious, unpredictable, and full of surprises, but only for those who take the time to look. And if you made it this far into this extremely long, detailed, deep research journey, then you're not just a viewer, you're someone with passion, someone with curiosity, someone who appreciates things that most people overlook every day. You are part of a rare group of people who understand the beauty of numismatics, the thrill of discovery, the excitement of finding something that others miss. That makes you special. And it means this channel isn't just content for you, it's a home for your curiosity. A place where rare coins, extraordinary finds, and unbelievable values continue to unfold, day after day. So before you go, remember this: the more you explore, the closer you get to that life-changing discovery. And I promise you, as long as you keep watching, I'll keep bringing you the deepest stories, the rarest facts, and the longest, most detailed scripts to guide your journey. Because this world is huge, and we've only just begun scratching the surface. More coins, more mysteries, more hidden fortunes, they're all waiting for you. So take a breath, gather your old pennies, grab your magnifying glass, and step into your own hunt. Maybe your next find will be the coin collectors talk about for the next 50 years. Maybe your next discovery will be the next headline. And maybe, just maybe, your 1984 penny will be the one the world has never seen before. Thank you for being here. Thank you for exploring. Thank you for staying till the end. Your support, your curiosity, and your passion keep this entire journey alive. Stay sharp, stay curious, and keep hunting, because the next big treasure might already be in your hands.